What happens if the food trucks stop showing up tomorrow to the grocery store? What do you do then? And where's your food coming from? Let's chat about it. We're also going to talk about what do you need to be doing to be on track to your goals. How's my beard look, Phil? All right. Good. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what's up, everybody? Episode 19 of the Progressive Resistance Podcast. I, of course, am Luke Krubeck, your host. Excited about this episode, as I am all episodes, for the conversations we're going to have and the guests that I have for you guys today. So, a couple reminders per usual. These episodes can be found not only on the Luke Krubeck YouTube channel, but also on all your streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So make sure you check them out. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all the good things that help us keep getting the good word out. So episode 19, which is wild. It feels like we kind of just started this process. But again, very excited about the conversations we're going to have today and appreciate all you guys, the support for tuning in and helping us spread the message of build the better you. All right, so my guest today, AJ Richards. AJ, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Luke. It's great.
And I'm going to give you a little intro here, and it'll be just some of the real basic cliff notes because we're going to get into it and unpack that a little bit too as we go. So
awesome.
My guest today is AJ Richards. AJ is a U.S. Army veteran, an entrepreneur, and is the CEO and co-founder of From the Farm, a company dedicated to the revival of small family farms and ranches, allowing an increased direct-to-consumer opportunity for our food. They lean into the importance of sourcing our food locally. Both AJ and From the Farm are on a mission to make America healthy again.
Yes.
Sound about right?
That sounds right.
All right, my friend. So I have known AJ for several years now. He's been a member of the Barbell Club a few times in and out based on his circumstances. So I've known him and been aware of this project that he's working on for a little while. And I thought it'd be an interesting conversation, something that interests me. And, talking about our food, where it comes from, how we get it, and maybe are there opportunities for increased efficiency with that. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about you, AJ, and I just want to give a little bit of history. So can you tell us about where and how you grew up, and then take us through maybe a brief history of like your youth into adulthood and, jobs, careers, things like that. Yeah. And then we'll get into the rest of it, man.
Yeah. I'm from Southern Utah. I was born in Sandy, up by Salt Lake.
Sure.
Was there till I was 1. So I grew up my whole life down in St. George, Utah.
Okay.
Family homesteaded the Arizona Strip in 1916. So we call it the Arizona Strip because it's north of the Grand Canyon. So that section of Arizona is cut off from the rest of it.
Sure.
You really get there by pretty much going through Utah. So family went out there in wagons in 1916 and staked their claim and started making a go of it in the desert. We have a really incredible history. I mean, even today, our family reunions are 1,100 people. That's the size of our clan.
Wow.
They're the Bundys, the Bundy Ranchers.
Okay.
So any folks that are familiar with some ag stuff from a few years back, my family took a stand against corrupt federal government back then in some pretty high profile instances. So, but yeah, growing up was amazing. My friends were my cousins, so it was just a really neat childhood.
Sure.
I'm the city slicker cousin, so I got to do all the brandings and cattle drives, but I didn't wake up doing the chores, so to say.
Sure.
But yeah, grew up down there, and then met my wife in high school, and then I joined the National Guard shortly after meeting her, Army National Guard, and we deployed in 2003. We were supposed to go to Iraq, and so we were getting trained up, ready to go to Iraq, and then right before we shipped out, Bush made the announcement the war in Iraq was over, and so we didn't go. We actually spent some time in Fort Lewis, Washington, playing laser tag, as they call it, Op 4. We were the bad guys as officers would come through the forests of Washington, and so we were their opposition, playing laser tag for the rest of our deployment. Lasted maybe about 6 months total, that first deployment.
Sure.
And then we came home, was home for about a year, and then we got deployed for real to Ramadi, Iraq.
Okay.
In 2005. And so I had a daughter by then. My wife and I got married. We actually, when the first deployment came up, we said, our date for our marriage was set, for our wedding was set. And so we talked about it because we were supposed to deploy, and we said, let's put it in God's hands, because we knew we were going to get deployed. We just didn't know when.
Sure.
And so we weren't going to call it off. And we were just going to let the date sit. And if it was meant to be, we would deploy after. And turns out our deployment was 2 weeks after we got married.
Okay.
So we had our wedding, then I deployed. But then when I came back home, we ended up having our first child. And so I left her and my wife when she was 5 months, and I was gone for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so gone for a year and a half, came home. And then I found myself in Phoenix, Arizona. Got hired with a pest control company. They brought me to Phoenix to run their national sales center. It was a new concept for them, and what they did was bring in all sales from all over the country into one call center, and then we would, handle that from there. Did that for a little bit, but then CrossFit was picking up, and found a lot of healing from combat in CrossFit that has a lot to do with the hormone regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this kind of later on, and so I loved it so much, I opened the first CrossFit gym in Mesa, Arizona. And then shortly after opening the CrossFit gym, with the entrepreneurial spirit, I thought, hey, let's put CrossFit athletes head-to-head, one-on-one in weight divisions. So I started a company called Rush Club Nation, and it was like, UFC concept of weight divisions and a title belt with the performance, because that's what it was, of CrossFit. But we put athletes that were paired with each other, that were in the same weight division, and then we tailored those workouts for that athlete. So if they were smaller athletes, the gymnastics was really challenging and incredible with some moderate weight. But if they were the monsters, they were lifted massive weights with some moderate gymnastics, just to kind of balance that out.
Yeah.
We did that ran the gym for about 8 years. The Rush Club ran that for 7. Grew that to 250,000 live viewers streaming. We'd have 300 to 900 people in-house that paid to be there. Celebrity Theater was one of our locations down there that was pretty cool. It's a 360-degree arena with the stage right in the middle. I mean, it was fun. It was learned a lot about myself and in that world, especially entrepreneurship. I was terrible, so couldn't scale it. Even with that many viewers, I just did too many things early on that prevented it from scaling. Ultimately ended up in a bankruptcy. So when I sold the gym and closed Rush Club, I ended up working with a guy named Chris Powell, who had a TV show called Extreme Makeover Weight Loss. And they brought me in to develop their coaching program for their weight loss clients early on in that business. And by then I'd already got introduced to self-development pretty heavily. As a CrossFit gym owner, I thought I was just going to teach people how to pick stuff up and put it down. But
sure,
you may experience this, I don't know, but you end up in your office talking about a lot more than weightlifting with folks.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
You couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
Why are we talking about your relationships or your trauma from your past?
100%.
It was just very interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. So did that. That ended up moving me home back to, after a little bit there, ended up moving back to Southern Utah, which I was grateful for. I did not like living in Phoenix. I'm not a big city guy.
Sure.
So ended up back in St. George, and I've always tried to get into agriculture, but my uncle told me when I was younger, if you want to be a millionaire rancher, start with 10 million and you'll lose it all. So really Rush Club was like my attempt at trying to make enough money so I could buy a ranch. That was in my vision.
Yes.
And when it didn't work out, I went back home and I just called my cousin in 2019 and said, can I sell beef for your ranch? Like, I'm trying to do all these things around what I really want to do. How about I just go get into it and figure it out as I go?
Sure. So the whole time the other endeavors were, you still had this like as your end game was being part of the agriculture side of things and being able to have that a piece of like what you were doing for your actual craft.
Absolutely.
You saw these as ways to get there.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to speak to your point of, I thought I was going to open a gym, and I guess it didn't maybe come as big of a surprise to me, because I had been working in the industry in the space for so long that it was no surprise to me that what it ended up being. But dude, man, to your point, on some of our apparel for a while, I was printing this, one of my many taglines, which was, it's more than just lifting weights.
Yeah.
And it is. It's, I have every 3 week check-in meetings with people that are in one of the programs that we run. Yeah, man. And like, I think the surprise for people is that they think they come to see me to help them look better naked.
Yep.
Which is a piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
Right. And we're working on their health and their fitness, but man, it is so much more. And then what's really rad for me is I get to sit from this angle and these unique opportunities to watch people see dramatic improvements in other areas of their life.
Yes.
Like dramatic, where suddenly we're talking about how their confidence is better, changes or upgrades at work, promotions, their sex life is better, their marriage is better, like they have a better relationship with their kids, like all of these things because they invested into themselves and they're lifting weights 3 days a week and prioritizing a balanced nutrition.
Yes.
And getting enough protein and drinking enough water, and blood pressure medications are dropping and blood work is improving and like sleep is better, less joint pain. Like it's just wild, like systemically in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, the general mission statement of the Barbell Club is I want to expose as many people as possible to strength training, because I know if they give it a chance, it's a tributary of positivity for the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
And if people give it a chance, they see that. And then they start to gain, and it's a buy one, get one, man. And so it's so cool. And I love it. And that's what, keeps me engaged in it. And because I get asked a lot about like burnout. They're like, you've been doing this, you've been lifting weights since you were 13, you've been in the industry in some version or another for so many years. Like, don't you get tired of it? And I go, tired of helping people become better versions of themselves? Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, what
it really wears me down.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, man, I don't, because it's just because the value.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right, man. So again, it's more than lifting weights, and a really cool opportunity to, I'm a gym owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, I'm a life coach.
That's right.
Is what it ends up being more than anything, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, and when people run up against plateaus, usually it's what's happening in the 6 inches between their ears,
100%,
not what's happening in the gym.
For sure. Well, then even just the changes of people that have significant weight loss goals or body composition goals that we're trying to create. Yeah, the biggest struggle isn't in the gym and the workouts. It's between their ears, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it's just what a cool opportunity that it creates. And super super grateful for the chance to help be a part of that and that journey for so many people, because it matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it really also requires me to be in a space to be able to carry that.
100%.
It can be very heavy.
It can, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm big in personal development, so I started this podcast, right? And we'll end up tying what we talk about today with your mission into that as well. But if I can't show up the way that I need to for those clients, or as a father, as a husband, or as a podcast host, I can't show up as any of that if I'm not doing the things that help me be the best me.
Yes.
Right. So that investment into self is what helps us show up the way we want.
Yep.
So that we can, continue to conquer the tasks at hand and move things forward. Right. And like move that needle. So yeah, it's a huge thing. And, in the last, it's coming up on 6 years that I've owned the Barbell Club now, I have had more conversations about Jesus Christ within those four walls than I ever have in my life.
Amazing.
Without even like pushing it. It just happens innately, because the things that people are experiencing, their journey of investing in themselves, gets them looking at everything else in their life, their emotional health, their mental health, their spiritual health.
Yep.
And it's just really rad.
Yeah.
And I have a cool gig, man.
Yeah.
And then
totally.
this platform to just have really great conversations, learn about people, learn about their story. It inspires me. It makes me want to level up. It makes me want to be better, and to hopefully share that with other people and get the good word out and inspire people that like they hear a podcast episode that they're like, you know what? I'm taking that dream that I've been sitting on the shelf and I'm going all in. Like that's the hope, right? Is
Yes.
that like people hear something from these that triggers them in a good way to get off their ass and like get going towards something that they feel drawn to or called to, and like figure out like what version of myself do I need to be to achieve that. Like that's ultimately kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, cool, man. So with that, all of that kind of led you into where you're at, and then eventually you ended up coming to Cody.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You had moved to this area about 4 years ago?
Yeah. March of 22 is when I first got to Cody.
Now, obviously, you always had a draw towards the agriculture side of things, wanting to be part of that, wanting to have a ranch and be in that realm. But your move to Cody exposed you to different angles of that world that kind of brought you to, the genesis of From the Farm, correct? Can you take us through that just a little bit?
Yeah. So the genesis of From the Farm was actually still in Utah in 2020 when COVID hit.
Okay, yeah, because you started about 6 years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been 6 years I spent 3.5 years doing R&D, which was just, we're dealing with COVID. So we started this direct-to-consumer business with my cousin's ranch,
Okay.
and we were doing well. This was late 2019, and business was picking up. People were starting, Butcher Box kind of paved the path for mail order beef.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, they're doing it. Let's do it right from the ranch. And so when I called my cousin to propose this idea, he's like, yeah, I'm all in. So he raised it, got it to the processing facility, and then I got it out the door from there. And then COVID hit, and we called to get our next round of processing, and they said, well, we can get you in 18 months. Prior, like literally the week prior to when it really kind of started falling apart, we could call and they'd be like, how many? 5? Cool, next week. I mean, it was that's how it was normally. And then COVID hits and the supply chain just started falling apart. And there's a lot to what caused that. But the supply chain starts falling apart. We can't get in for a year and a half. And I'm already, with my sort of military background, I'm already like fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system's like on the lookout. And I'm worried. Like I'm seeing this, like we are in trouble. And I didn't know that's how bad our food system had become.
Sure.
Until this is starting to happen. And God just opened my eyes to like, there's some real issues here. And so I started just kind of digging in and figuring out what was going on. And I remember driving down the road one day and the news is talking about empty store shelves and limiting what you could purchase depending on where you live. And my cousin has fat cows in the field.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, these people just don't know how to reconnect to the source to get it. Somebody should build the Airbnb of local food. And that idea, God just dropped it right in there. And I was like, huh. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about software. So I called buddies that were software developers and like, dude, this has to get done. You need to do this. And they're like, nope.
I think the first success and way to be successful in business is hiring people that are smarter than you at certain things.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to pawn it off. But they didn't understand. They didn't see what I was seeing because it wasn't a vision put on their heart. And so I wrestled with that for a while. And in fact, I wasn't going to do anything with it. I was like, well, none of these guys want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then God wouldn't let me sleep for weeks. He would show me the face of a man in Iraq when we took care packages to him. And I was seeing me as him watching other men feed my kids. And for weeks, I couldn't sleep. And I hadn't thought about that moment in 15 years. And now it's right there in my vision at night. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So finally, I'm like, okay, God, who do I got to talk to? Because you're clearly not going to just let me sweep this vision under the rug. So I just posted on Facebook locally, hey, I have this idea for a software. I have no idea where to start. Anybody with software background can help me. And this guy reached out and said, hey, let's grab coffee. So I went and met him for coffee and I told him the idea. And he's like, I need to introduce you to this guy named Isaac Barlow. and he's a local there that was building a software company it was time management for construction company owners. So basically a digital timekeeper.
Sure.
And met with him, and he goes, I can see you're really passionate about this. And he goes, and he had some ag connections. So he's like, I can see why there could be a need for it. But the last thing I would ever get into as a startup is software, because only 1 in 2,000 make it. And he was in the middle of it, struggling daily. And so he was like, just being real honest with me, you know, and what I've learned in my life is I am the sum of the mentors I've had.
Sure.
I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah.
And so he's becoming at this moment, I didn't know it yet, but he was going to be becoming a mentor. And so when he said that, he goes, you need to go do the market research and make sure what this vision is will actually serve the people you think it's going to serve, and that it'll work. Because otherwise you're going to waste a lot of time and money. I was like, okay. So I left that meeting and just started asking questions. Still a lot of self-doubt.
Sure.
You know, it was not a meeting where I'm like, cool, go time.
Yeah.
Just a lot of self-doubt. And I still had to provide for my family. My wife was working full time. So I was working Walmart distribution at night, slinging concrete during the day for my friends, just doing whatever I could to make ends meet, selling beef on the side. And eventually we had to shut down the beef company because I couldn't get processing consistently enough to make it work. So I was just doing whatever while still having these conversations, and things were not getting better. Our food system is still in decline. And, we're 6 years out and it's still just declining. In fact, during President Biden's time, we lost almost 20,000 ranchers a year. We've been losing them that way for the last 5 years. And so I'm just looking at our food system, which is a national security issue, just being decimated because we've become dependent on foreign imports and big companies and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So I'm asking all these questions and getting a little bit, here and there, but there, again, a lot of self-doubt. So I'd go talk to somebody and it would be an insurmountable barrier. So I would slow down, not do anything until I'd get a nudge again from God, like, you're not done. And so I'd pick back up and keep going. And so that's kind of the origin of how things really got rolling.
Sure.
And met some people, told them about, and then I realized, okay, maybe the only way we can build a direct-to-consumer meat company and be successful is if we also own the processing. That's one of the major components in the middle. And so I put a business model together. Let's buy a processing facility or build one, partner with farmers and ranchers, and then build the direct-to-consumer label. And that's how I ended up here in Cody, because the people I presented the business model to bought a local processing facility in Cody.
Sure.
Cody was never on my radar.
Right.
I mean, I met one kid in basic training decades ago who is from Cody, Wyoming. And never thought of it again outside of that,
Sure, yeah.
And so a friend of mine sent me a link to this processing facility for sale. We were trying to build one in southern Utah. Wasn't getting anywhere with anybody, in state or local positions to support what we were trying to do. So this facility pops up. I sent it to the guys that I'd presented this business model to. And within 4 months, I was living here.
Wow.
I mean, it just moved very quickly.
Happened quick, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, your connection now to that processing facility and all of that being done.
Yeah.
What has kept you in Cody? Well, you guys left for a little while.
Yeah.
And you came back. So what's kept you in Cody?
When I moved to Cody, the stress I was feeling to take care of my own family disappeared.
Okay.
To provide for them disappeared.
Okay.
Geographically, Cody is very safe.
Sure.
Right? The closest big city is Denver, 7 hours away.
Right.
And we have natural resources all around us.
Sure.
So if things completely fell apart in our country, people who live in places like ours,
sure,
we're good.
Yeah, I would say, I mean,
it ain't going to be comfortable.
No.
We're good.
But yeah, to your point, I reference Cody as the land of milk and honey.
Yes.
All the time for some of those same reasons, right? And people are like, why do you live in Cody? I'm like, well, trust me, it's not without its first world problems.
Yep.
When it comes to travel, you're traveling a lot right now with this. And like Cody is not easy to get to, therefore it's not easy to get anywhere.
That's right.
But you sacrifice some of that for, some of the peace of mind that comes from, again, there you're in, resources, location matters a lot, all of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, 2:30 a.m. wake ups to get to Billings to the airport
yeah,
is with the price you pay to live
100%.
somewhere like this.
sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I had for you, AJ, was, how much do you feel like this kind of passion project that you're working on, and I'll call it that if I may,
Yeah.
how much do you feel like that was impacted by how you were raised?
Oh, massively. I mean, again, my family are the Bundy ranchers. And
Sure.
so I've watched them fight bad government policy my whole life. I mean, I remember family meetings where there were big family meetings because most of them were all in agriculture back then. And a lot of that seemed to be around the stress of being ranchers. And then, that kind of thing.
And I guess just to clarify for maybe like people that are listening to, is like, well, when they're fighting government, by that, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're referencing is the, implementing a more of a like centralized food economy that was then going to make it harder for them to put, no pun intended, but food on the table for their families.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for them to sell the products that they're
in our part of the world,
working so hard to create and make.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Okay.
it's centralized. So, cow calf guys, where we are in this part of the world, most people are cow calf guys, meaning they have mama cows on big open country because they've got a lease. Their ranches out here, it blows people the people that ranch in the East, it blows their mind that a ranch out here has to be 100,000 acres
Sure.
or something like that to operate. Because back East, it's 2,000 acres.
Sure.
Right. So they're like, what? 100,000 acres?
Yeah.
Like, but we're in the desert. Here, we're in a place where it doesn't have as much forage. So you need that much to run cows. But really the policies that affect us in the West are policies like that Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, or Forest Service, when they have these leases on these public lands, and you get these bureaucrats that have no clue, or they're compromised by environmentalist agendas, and they start finding ways to take away how many cows they're allowed to run on these open lands.
Sure.
And they're done under false pretenses that cows are bad for the environment when it's completely the opposite. So those are the kinds of things that I was seeing growing up. Now, they have different issues in the East than we have here, but that was primarily what I was seeing happening in our part of the world.
Sure. So definitely impacted by how you're raised and what you were already kind of witness to growing up. And then the second part of that question is on the mission that you're on right now, how do you feel like it's impacted your family and your children, good or bad?
Well, fortunately for me, the self-development work I've done has allowed my family to thrive with this added responsibility, I'll call it, because I'm a much better father and husband. If I hadn't gone through my own journeys of self-development up to this point,
Sure.
I wouldn't be able to say that. But really important mentor in my life, his name's Steve Hardison, shared the quote with me, which isn't his: "No amount of success will ever make up for failure in the home."
Hey.
And he shared that with me a few years ago. And it took me some time to really understand what that meant. But now, my presence at home when I'm home matters, and how I'm with my children really matters, and how I spend my time and how I talk to my wife really matters. And so they're my biggest allies now.
Yeah.
So with my travel, they know what I'm up to. And
Sure.
when we don't see any negative downside of that at all.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And it's something that I've spoken to on this podcast a lot. It's just this, like, what's your order of operation for your life? You may remember that I had a flag hanging at the end of the gym in my hand script that says God, family, freedom, waits.
Yep.
And I explain often, I'm like, that's my order of operation. These are the things that matter most to me and that I will never put behind my business or my financial goals.
Yep.
Because those are the four things that I need with me if and when I'm successful.
Yeah.
Those are the things that help me show up as I need to be successful. Now, there's probably an argument for some people. They're like, well, if you're prioritizing these things, then it's going to slow you down. I'm like, fine.
Exactly.
I would rather it take me longer to get there, but then not have a wake of destruction behind me as I celebrate my success.
Yes.
I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. So I very much appreciate that notion of like, hey, I'm going to prioritize these things because it's what matters most. And it's what helps me be who I need to be. Like amen to that, man.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to do that. Like, what's your order of operation? What matters most? And it's a pretty simple list. I'm like, my relationship with my Savior, my relationship with my family. Freedom means a lot of things to me. You know, some of what you're doing is in relationship to our freedoms here. But freedom also is this reminder to me that like I have this opportunity of free agency to choose everything, choose how I respond, choose how I live my life, the things that I do, the things I don't do. And then weights, of course, just like, I mean, our health, man.
Yes.
Like, and we've already talked about that today of how investing in yourself through some strength training and fitness it will infiltrate everything else in a positive way. So
I have that shirt that you have.
yeah. Yep.
I mean, I saw that. I was like, yes.
Yeah. that was probably one of our most popular shirts we ever made. So,
but yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm grateful that I had that awareness, because if I get to success in business, but I don't have my wife with me and I don't have my kids with me and they hate me,
it doesn't matter.
It won't matter. Like
what matters?
Because our mindset in the early phases of that is we're doing it for our family to provide a better future for them.
Sure.
You know, but then if you're not inherently attached to that, you'll lose that while you'll lose sight of that while you're pursuing these other goals.
Agreed. And I think there's seasons, right? I think there's like sometimes the ox is in the mire and you're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul here a little bit. But I think if you can establish a few non-negotiables of like, you know, this is like, I've used this example before, but it's a really basic one, but I try to always be home for bedtime routine.
Yeah.
I have young kids, right? Like, and that means sometimes I'm home for that and then I leave to go back to work or do whatever I need to do. And there's times where I miss it, but like that's one of those for me. And so
sure.
Like with your travel and back and forth from DC and all that, like you're inevitably going to miss out on a few things, but when you are home, prioritizing how present you are and the way that you do spend the time that you do have, right? So,
yeah. Like my girls are in cheer at the school here.
Sure.
And I missed homecoming,
right?
The homecoming game.
Sure.
And I was gone out of town for the next game, but I made it home, or I was gone out of town and I made it home and the girls didn't know if I'd make it home.
Sure.
And then I'm sitting in the bleachers and they look up and just the look on their face.
Yeah.
Dad made it.
Sure.
But because they know Dad's going to do everything he can to be there.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm not there for the homecoming, they're just like, we get it. And we have a really open communication in our home. And so my girls know what Dad's up to.
Yeah.
And so they're championing me.
Yeah.
Go get it.
Cool, man.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next question for you, AJ, is do you feel like you're gaining ground with this project? And I have a second part of this question, but I'll start with that. Do you feel like you're gaining ground?
We do. Yes, it ain't easy and we still have a mountain to climb. You know, we're constantly looking for funding and stuff like that. But there are certain areas, you know, seasons, again, there are certain areas in our business where we're gaining massive ground, like with policy, you know, things I've been able to accomplish because God's given me this ability to communicate and connect. I'm learning that one of my greatest skills is my ability to connect the right people.
Sure.
And so we're seeing a lot of momentum there. And then on the actual like operation functioning of the business, we still have a lot to learn. And
Sure.
so we're navigating a lot of that. And I think we have the right answers. It's just about implementing and building the right team and making sure we can execute.
Yeah. And I think some of what you're talking about is just the ability to navigate messy action, right?
Yes.
Like you have to start moving.
Yes.
Right? Like you have a plan, but at some point you're going to learn as you go with a lot of this, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Good is the enemy of great, right? That's a pretty common quote. Good is the enemy of great. In other words, if you're waiting to launch when it's perfect, that's the enemy of actually getting there. And so you just got to get going.
Sure. Absolutely. The second part of that question is, since starting this 6 years ago, and I guess I'll preface this question with this, right? Just to kind of recap, is like, you saw the struggles growing up of government perhaps overstepping and then affecting your family's ability to make a living,
Yep.
to do the things that they wanted to do. Then as time goes, your exposure to, people not having control of their food sources and being in poverty as your time overseas in the military, then introduced COVID and the supply chain issues that we had. We all experienced that, empty shelves. And I think anyone that experienced that probably had that had to feel odd and a bit nervous for everybody.
Yes.
Because it's like how quickly, and I have some friends that work in the grocery industry. And I was talking to one time and I was like, if all supplies can't get into where we're at, how long before the shelves are empty? He goes, 2 days.
Yep.
Like everything.
Yes.
Except maybe like some random, plastic forks and paper goods, everything.
Yep. That's right.
And how alarming that is, right? So these are things that have drawn you to this project because you see these problems, these potential problems of supply chain. And then you saw the issues of like, hey, this is like our livelihood. And because of this, it's affecting that. So then the question to you is, has your ultimate vision or goal changed at all since you started? And how close do you think you are to reaching it?
Yeah. The ultimate goal has not. How we execute or implement evolves as we learn. But the ultimate goal of cutting out all the middlemen and connecting people right to the source of their food is still the solution, right?
Sure.
Because when that's what the supply chain showed us. In fact, in any sort of conflict or combat, if you take out their supply chain, you win.
Sure.
And so that's really what this whole thing is focused on. Like our food supply chain is the reason we function the way we function. And if you remove that, Elon going to Mars, as smart as he is, won't matter if the folks that work for him can't feed themselves, right? And I use that as an extreme example, but it doesn't matter what your goals or vision, no matter how incredible they might be, or how much of a service they might be. If it's not Mars, but curing cancer, if you're starving, then it won't matter that you have the cure for cancer, because famine is the ultimate destroyer of any hope, right? And so being able to connect people in a way that is uncontrollable by outside parties, right? Our slogan is shake the hand that feeds you. If you've built that relationship, like for me, I knew ranchers. So COVID was way less concerning for me than those who were fully relying on what was on the grocery shelves.
Sure.
Now, I was surrounded by a lot of people, and being in southern Utah, only 4% of the food they consume comes from there. And because the volume of consumers we have with how few producers we have, we're still in a really vulnerable state, which is, again, coming to Cody, I'm like, okay, we don't have to worry about that here. Low population, high number of resources.
Sure.
And we're not the only place like that, but
sure.
But that's where it's at. Now, the mechanics of how to do all that, that's the challenge, because you still have to get it from the farm to the consumer, right? You still have to create those connection points. So that's where the challenge lies for us. As far as like how close we are to success, I truly believe we're only the right philanthropic investor away from success. Like the model we're putting together, with the reason I use Airbnb, and you can plug Etsy, consumers seem to more associate what we're trying to do with like the Etsy of food.
Sure.
I use Airbnb because they solved all those logistics in the middle.
Yeah.
For short-term rentals that allowed, anybody with an extra room to just post it, and that was pretty much their responsibility. But how to execute on that is challenging, but we're close. If we get the investment that we're looking for so we can scale our team, then we can deliver. So
when we talk about, a breakdown of our infrastructure that would, kind of happen in COVID a little bit because of the shutdowns and everything else, it can't help but think about, okay, well, one of your main resources to have this available so that people can run their resources that they're selling like an Airbnb or Etsy is the internet.
Yes.
So if that goes down,
yep.
Does that completely hamstring this? I mean, to a certain extent, right?
To a certain extent, it does. It does for the business, but God called me to do this to be of service. So if the internet goes down, that just means my business doesn't function.
Yeah.
But if we can connect as many people throughout the country as possible, then and I'm no longer needed, then I've still delivered on what God called me to do, which is feed people.
Well, and then what it's going to do without the internet, it's just going to make the resourcing go to your local areas, right?
That's right. Because that is the vision. Long-term vision is hyper-local. Like ideally, we shouldn't be shipping beef from Florida to California.
Sure.
It should be within Florida to Florida, right? And we have some nuances there. Like Phoenix, Arizona does not produce enough livestock to feed that city.
Right. So then, so that leads perfectly into one of my other questions for you as I was unpacking this, as I was kind of prepping for this. I'm like, so then, it explained to me, like, how can something like this work within a really large, like, metropolitan area or like an inner city, where in the surrounding several hundred miles, there's not the resources like we have here.
Yep.
So where we don't have the opportunity, let's say, for the internet to, like, buy and sell from a little bit of a distance, like, what does that look like for those areas? It doesn't seem like it looks good.
It's not good. I tell my friends that live in the cities, I hope you have a backup.
Yeah.
And I hope you can get out quick.
Yep.
Because we are so far from where we should be. What we're trying to do is a multi-decade solution. We have to increase the number of producers throughout the country. But in order to do that, you have to fix policy where those people can't come in. And so I pray that we don't have the internet go down and that UPS, FedEx, and these trucks can keep running, because that's the only way millions of people are eating.
Right.
And so let's take a less worst case environment. Up here, what I learned moving into Wyoming and being close to Montana, they grow far more than there are consumers to feed it to. So we can connect logistically Montana and Wyoming to places like Nevada and Arizona where they need that. Like, if all the producers here sold direct to consumer, there's not enough consumers to support the producers.
Really?
No. But if we get a marketplace in Phoenix, like if they know, hey, I can get Montana beef, then we can get it straight down to them. And now you have the consumers to help Montana producers be viable.
That blows my mind to hear you say that we have so much production in this area that we don't have enough consumers for it. That blows my mind. There's something I do because I'm always, like, thinking behind the scenes on everything. My wife gives me a hard time about it because, like, one time we were on a vacation, we were, like, in the Bahamas, and we're at this resort, and we're on the balcony of the room and looking at the resort and the ocean, and it's evening, and we've been out there in silence just looking at everything for 10 minutes or so, and finally I pipe up and I go, who changes all these light bulbs? I'm looking at this huge resort and all these lights, and she's like, that's what you're thinking about right now? I was like, well, someone's got to do it.
Yep.
I was like, do they just have a room full of light bulbs?
Yeah.
And it's Jerry's job to go out and just make sure, like, And so, like, we go to Vegas a lot. It's a quick getaway from us. It's direct, lots of good food, all that good stuff. But when I'm there, the Vegas Strip blows my mind. It's like a monument to, like, man's arrogance.
Yeah, for sure.
But I always say, like, pick one resource, just one resource.
Yep.
I'm like, chickens.
Yep.
You know how many fucking chickens go in and out of that strip in a day, bro? I'm like, and that's just the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
That's not the rest of I'm like, how are there that many chickens?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I start thinking about it, and then I start getting, like, stressed because I'm like, there is no, like, how have we not, this flying third rock from the sun, how have we not destroyed this thing already?
Yeah.
Like, how is there, it's pretty wild. And I guess it does also speak to the engineering and, the gifts that God has given us to have the smarts to know how to make things work and not get in too much trouble. But dude, it blows me away when I think about the resources that are required, that are wasted, that are, it's incredible. And so
we do waste about 40% of the food we produce. And think
that doesn't surprise me.
That doesn't all the buffets.
Yeah.
How much of that's being tossed out? So now we don't produce, if we couldn't get stuff coming in from out of our country, we wouldn't produce enough to feed all those folks. And if the supply chain, the trucks stopped coming like we saw during COVID, from whatever massive operation those are being produced in come in, that would be a problem. And also, being in the health space, the way that we're producing it is not healthy.
Of course. And I have that discussion a lot, it's like, the prioritization of single ingredient foods and whole foods is something that I push with all my nutrition plans, right? but even knowing that they're not as, they're not as dense nutritionally as they once were, right? So it's still better than the alternative.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an interesting study. So one of the questions I had for you is, are there enough active and viable farms and ranches out there to pull this off the way you see and to get the control back to the people? Are there enough out there that are working and viable to do this?
No.
So
Easily no.
So we would need to increase the amount of people that are starting, owning, building, operating farms and ranches.
Yeah. In fact, only 2% of our population are growing anymore. Like I was saying, we lost 20,000 ranches a year for the last 5 years, right? So we're down a lot of.
And that's because we're resourcing from other countries?
It's because the big systems that are maximizing efficiency and resourcing from other countries the consumers don't know any better. They go with what's convenient and cheap. Now they'll go buy a $7 latte and complain about, $7 pound of ground beef.
Yeah. Right.
And there's just that disconnect. So re-educating is really important. But that's been something that I've proposed to the USDA in DC, is the need to incentivize the return of production in America. And fortunately, what COVID did was wake a lot of people up. So one of the fastest growing movements in our country is homesteading. People wanting to get on their own little piece of property.
I would say it feels like that's a trend to me right now.
Yep.
Like more and more people, whether it's just a small little garden or having some chickens, like people are thinking about this more than maybe they ever have.
Yes.
Or at least it's picking back up.
Yes.
And I've wondered what's driven that a little bit, but
yeah, and it was what COVID did.
It had to have been, right?
Like anybody that's aware of this, listen, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw it, I'm worried about it. And so a lot of folks left the cities and started a small homestead. Now what needs to follow is markets, like consumers. If you really want that to be available for you, you need to change your buying behaviors.
You need to go, farmers markets, things of that nature. Yeah.
And it's a lie that buying food direct is too expensive. Yes, the sticker on that is going to be more than the cheap stuff you can buy, like the heat and eat meals, the boxed meals, but you're going to pay for it on the back end with your health.
Yeah.
But also my wife, she's the one that does this at home, and she goes, we actually don't spend that much more money, because when you buy those fresh whole foods and you cook, you usually have leftovers. You actually get 2 meals out of one.
100%. And this is a conversation that comes up with me when I'm working with people on nutrition plans.
Mm-hmm.
That's come as a little bit of a cop-out or an excuse, or like, well, I can't afford to eat healthy.
Yep.
And I was like, well, if you think being healthy is expensive, the gym membership and the food and all that, I'm like, try being sick.
Yes.
Because then you're out of work. Like and it's hard to have sometimes the foresight to look ahead and be like, oh, okay, this is an investment.
Yes.
And it's going to help me save money in the long run because I'm avoiding those other things.
Yeah, you're going to pay the farmer now, or you're going to pay pharma later.
Sure. It's a great way to put it.
Just the way to...
It's a great way to put it. But no, I agree with you. And with that, like, it's fun. And it's a perspective thing. Like, we're fortunate to have a lot of family around here that help us watch the kids. And my mother-in-law watches our kids on Wednesdays. A lot of times she'll be at our house, and she always says, you guys don't have any food. You don't have any food. But like, I was like, sure we do.
Yeah.
But like we prioritize single ingredient food. So like to a lot of people, our fridge looks a little bit more barren.
Yep.
But like,
we're an ingredient household.
Yeah. And so it's funny when I put people on nutrition plans, they're like, well, do you have any recipes? I was like, sure. Cook the animal protein.
Yep.
Cook the rice.
Yep.
Cook the green beans and put them together.
Yep.
Like there's
your recipe.
I was like, season it how you want. I was like, there's not really a recipe. I'm like, and all my food, I make all my food taste good. I don't dread any of my meals, but like, to your point, the single ingredient food, when I cook it, rice is such a, a bag of rice lasts forever, and it goes so long. And if you do it right and you prep the food ahead of time, you've got leftovers. And that's, eating at the frequency that I do and that I have my clients eat on.
Yep.
You have to prep ahead of time. You have to prepare. And that's a lifestyle shift for a lot of people because it's not as convenient. But once you do it, they're like, oh, wow, like I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better. My body's changing. So like, again, the proof's in the pudding, right?
Right.
As if people give it the chance. But yeah, the whole thing, I can't afford it or it's too expensive. It's really not that much more expensive, especially because when you're eating this way, you're cutting out the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're probably cutting out the sugary lattes
Yes.
and the extras here and there because you're like, well, that doesn't serve me, and that's not really what I'm going for. So you'll actually spend less in other ways, and it'll probably not be that much different.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you go to McDonald's now, right, and
Sure.
you buy a meal, I haven't been in McDonald's for a long time, so I'm guessing you're going to be around $13, $14 for that meal.
Probably.
If you get the burger, the drink, and the fries,
Sure.
whatever. Well, if a pound of ground beef is $7 or $8,
Sure.
because you can get it for that. You can get even less if you buy it in volume.
Sure.
But if you buy that ground beef, $7 or $8, and then you've got some rice, and then you drink water or you drink milk or whatever, that's the same cost, but you're going to have leftovers.
Yep.
You're going to have two meals.
Yeah.
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 So
Yep, for sure. So can you speak to the challenges that are created by, climate of where you might live? So like, for example, like the growing season's not going to be the same for some places. The types of crops you can carry, the types of fruits and vegetables. Because, right, like immediately as I think about this, I'm like, okay, again, if I'm not able to go through internet and get it from other places and I'm here locally, like, man, I ain't enjoying all the fruits and vegetables that I do now because, well, we just don't grow them here. We don't have the same opportunity.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that and troubleshooting that at all and how that fits into the puzzle?
Well, again, it's consumer behavior, mindset, right? We are fooled to believe that we can go to Albertsons and buy apples in January.
Yeah, or pineapple. Whatever.
Or pineapple.
Yeah.
Like, that's not normal.
Sure.
And so that's on us.
Yeah.
Really. And then there's also things like the old ways that have been forgotten.
Yep.
People fed themselves here year round.
Yep.
Now, they did, root cellars where they harvested what they grew through the growing season and they stored them in root cellars so they had them through the winter, or they canning your food so it lasts, all through the winter. Like, we water glass our eggs. We have a bunch of chickens. We water glass eggs. Most people have never heard of that. An egg unwashed has a protective bloom on it.
Yep.
You put it in a jar of water with pickling lime, and it'll be shelf stable for 18 months. So when our chickens are in high production during the summer, we water glass a portion of those, and we put them down in our cellar for the winter. And then we use them throughout the winter until the chickens are in production again.
Yeah.
There's also old native ways of doing things, or things like a wallapini. Like, my vision for our property here is to turning it into somewhat of a demonstration side of what's possible with some of these methods. And a wallapini is a below ground greenhouse with the roof that's the only thing that is exposed. And that can extend our growing season we're in zone 5. That can extend our growing season 1 or 2 months. But we just have become so segmented through convenience of how to do these things the old way.
Sure.
And this is what I try to get to people to understand is, as a living organism, your single most important priority is feeding yourself. Every living organism. And, that's what we are. But we have become so removed from it
Sure.
that we just think it's going to be there for us. And so we've given the most important responsibility of ours to somebody else. And so that's why a big part of our mission at From the Farm is education, so that people can reconnect with what that means to be prepared.
So that's a piece of this company, right? Is to try to give the resources that if someone who has never grown up around this, has no idea where to start, could have those resources to be like, okay, how do I get started with this?
Yep.
Cool. I love that.
Whether it's gardening, whether it's backyard chickens or backyard rabbits, like, we're going to get into meat rabbits.
Okay.
3 females and 1 male will produce 400 pounds of meat a year.
Wow. Well, I mean, their gestation period's like 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's a whole cow.
That's
3 females.
That's wild.
And they don't make noise. So if you've got a little tiny yard, nobody's going to bother you. They're going to just live in the backyard, do their thing, and you've got meat that you're producing. So, but if you don't know that, if you've never heard that,
sure,
you might be somewhere and you're like, I can't do anything. I live in the city. I've got a small yard. Right. Even if you're in an apartment, well, technology now exists. You can do a tower garden and at least grow some of your own produce.
Sure.
If you're in an apartment and you've got this nice TV on a stand, that stand should be a deep freezer.
Yeah.
Your friends might think you're crazy, but it's your responsibility.
Sure.
And, but there's just not enough. It's like, what about going to the club?
Sure.
How do I look good to go to the club? That's
Sure.
what younger generations, younger folks might be thinking is, they're out there looking for a mate, but they're not thinking about the most important resources. How do I feed this?
Well, and it's true. And sometimes it's really of no fault. Sometimes it's just how you were raised and you don't have nothing to compare it to. But like, I have these conversations with my daughter all the time. She's 7. Like she can, the other day we have instant hot water, right?
Yeah.
And she was in our shower. It has 3 shower heads.
Yeah.
And she's in there with her Barbies living her best life. She was in there for she's singing.
Yeah.
And she's in there for 2 hours,
Yeah. The hot water never goes away.
Never goes away. But she doesn't understand that's
Yes.
not normal.
Yeah.
And I try to help her understand that.
Yep.
So I was getting her out and we're getting her dried off and brushing her hair and doing all that. And I was explaining to her, I was like, Zena, I was like, did you know that most of your friends probably can't take a bath or a shower for as long as they want because the hot water runs out?
Yep.
She goes, what? And she was confused by that. She's like, that's all she's ever known.
Yeah.
And then that got into a conversation of where our water comes from and all these other things. I'm like, things don't just happen. We don't just magically have food in the fridge. I was like, so I try to have these conversations with her, and she's a deep thinker like me.
Okay.
She was when she was 2, she has this, she calls it her bike, but it's this little thing they sit on and they can go like this and it steers itself. And we have cement floors.
Yeah.
So she rips around the great room in that thing, and she's riding around one day. She's been taking laps for 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden she stops and she's staring at the wall in our living room, just staring at it. And we were in the kitchen, my wife and I, and we were like, what is she doing? And after a couple minutes, she goes, Mom, what's on the other side of that wall? And she just looks at me and she's like, that's your daughter. Right? Because again, I'm like, who changes all these light bulbs?
Yeah, exactly.
But she's like, what's on the other side of that wall?
Yeah.
And so it's fun to have those conversations with her because she's already a little bit inquisitive, but it's like, things don't just happen. And the thing that I like about it too is it can create a little bit more gratitude of
yes,
the things that we have, and recognizing that not everyone has the same opportunities, not everyone, or at least, it's an interesting study. And I think as we go through, you just know what you know, and you become default pattern to that. And to your point, we're a mammal, and every other mammal, from the minute they wake up to they're going to bed, usually a big piece of that is foraging and feeding and all of that. So it's an interesting study.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you feel that any part of what drove a centralized food economy was a volume game? For example, the population increases and the needs. Do you think any of it was not intended to be negative or through malice? How much of it do you feel was guided by the fact that, because man, population is significantly different than it was, early 1900s, and things like that. So can you speak to that? I have to believe that some of it came out of necessity a little bit too, because of the growth and because of the cities and things like this.
Yeah, I think early on I don't think it was as, I don't think the goal early on was this evil Mr. Burns
Sure.
in the tower going, how do I control it all?
Sure.
After World War II, Europe was in great state of potential famine. And so we felt that we needed to increase our production to make sure Europe didn't starve.
Sure.
And then because of the maximized efficiency and the people that saw the money coming in, then they took advantage of it.
You're right, because they see it's opportunistic, right?
Yeah, but we would be able to produce everything we need if it was focused on what we as people need, not what companies need. And so it's been hijacked over time. In fact, in 1963, our Center of Economic Development said that the movement of farmers off farms hasn't been fast enough to take full advantage of technology, meaning better farm equipment to farm massive amounts of acreage versus all these small farms doing it themselves. And so their goal became to remove 1/3 of farmers off farms in 5 years.
Wow.
And that was definitely corporate driven. And that was in 1963. And some of that stuff had already started earlier on, but then shortly after that, USDA Secretary Earl Butz said, get bigger, get out. And that was all funded and promoted by the companies that were starting to maximize their own profits. And so our federal government directly leaned into making things harder for those farmers to make a living. And so they're doing everything they possibly can to survive, not knowing they were never going to, because the entire system was set up to crush them.
Yeah.
And so we're living in that now. And that's definitely what's happened.
And it's always been an interesting study for me throughout my whole life. I've always found it confusing to me. I'm like, why? Like, pick any resource, like oil. Like, I'm like, why are we getting oil from other countries when we probably have enough to supply the entire world?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting study. And usually, unfortunately, it seems like there's some sort of monetary connection to it all.
Yep.
So initially you felt like there was probably like an organic, like, you know, hey, this is out of like necessity. But then again, we start seeing opportunities for money, and then it gets blown out of proportion for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. In fact, I met somebody here, and this is like, you know, the game telephone. So just, if you want to dig in, if you're somebody listening to this, go ahead and do your own research. But it was a conversation I had that they were connected to, you know, from their grandfather to the folks that were here right after World War II. And they actually went to, the president went to the Mormon prophet because of the amount of connections he had that were in agriculture.
Sure.
And told them he wanted them to encourage them to produce double your production. And the prophet, the way it was relayed to me, the prophet said he could see why that would be a bad thing down the road.
Sure.
And didn't want to. But they knew they were going to go that route anyway, so he was encouraged by the people back home. You know, they're going to go this route with or without you. Maybe you can influence it so it doesn't become corrupt. Now, ultimately it did.
Sure.
But he could see that wasn't a good idea.
It's funny, during the COVID thing, I had I had one of my members stop in, and he knows I'm LDS, right?
Yeah.
He goes, guess the LDS people weren't wrong about the food storage thing, huh? Right? Because like you can buy toilet paper, man. You can buy anything, and that's something that for years has been pushed within that faith.
Yeah,
is like preparedness.
Yeah, and provident living. Yeah,
because you just never know.
That's
so
right.
There's a lot of you know, LDS families that have, you know, pantries or storehouses that are full of the things that they need, including, you know, other goods, right?
Yeah.
Like not just food, but on the preparedness thing. And so it's an interesting study, right? And like, if anything, COVID proved to us, you just don't know when or why things might happen, you know? And
that's right.
How quickly it can get out of hand, you know,
Yeah.
if you don't have control of where you're getting those things. So,
I will say too, that with all of that now, we are in a time, for the first time since the creation of the USDA, we actually have a leader in the USDA that is listening to the small producers throughout the country. You know, it's a very challenging position to be in. I think that the head of the USDA's role is second only to the Department of War. It's that, I mean, difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like it's something as important as how do we stay alive? Like you said, like famine being one of the biggest things that could impact a society, right? So that would make sense to me. Remind me her name.
Brooke Rollins, Secretary Brooke Rollins. Yep.
And so, how long has she been in? And then, what do the terms look like for that?
She just got in this year she was appointed by President Trump, so she's just brand new into it, and she's been collecting as much data and information as she can to get the whole scope of things. I mean, I would not want her role.
I bet not.
And so I've had the opportunity to take producers that are not part of any trade group. They're not part of any corporate group. The actual 85% of, this is USDA's own data, 85% of our producers are considered small. And what that means is $350,000 in revenue a year or less.
Oh, wow.
That's 85% of our producers. And so those are the people that I've always prayed that the Secretary of Agriculture would listen to, because they make up such a vast majority. And if we lose them, then we only have the big corporates to buy from, and they make decisions solely on profit. Whereas the small farmers looking at the health of their soil, the health of their forage, the health of their food, the food they're producing, because they're not hiding behind a corporate label. It's their family's name on it. So if you're buying meat from me, you bought from AJ. You didn't buy from Albertsons, which has no name attached to it.
Sure.
So if there's a problem, it's AJ's problem. And I got to make sure I'm producing a high quality food for you.
Sure.
Because that matters to me. My name and my reputation matters to me. And so yeah, she's in a position now where it is the first time we have somebody actually listening and implementing what she's hearing. But it's a challenge because she's also got to serve the status quo that's there, because that's what's filling our grocery stores. So it's a very challenging place to be.
She said it's a dance.
Yep.
Because we have these systems and you can't just completely do away with them, because then obviously we don't have the volume of people that are producing so it's God, man, like you have tackled a project that, like, I mean, have you done the math? Like, what do you think the real timeline is? I mean, for what we've lost and how little we have of people producing right now, like, are we 50 years away from that? Like 100? Like, if we could
wave a magic wand and the policies were changed so that we could just produce and sell direct, right? Thomas Massey's proposed the Prime Act for a long time. Joe Salatin has the Food Emancipation Proclamation, which means as consenting adults, both of those pretty much are the same. As consenting adults, we should have the right to choose where we buy from and from who we buy from. The government shouldn't be able to tell me that I can't buy raw dairy if I want to buy raw dairy. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. And if you got all of those things out of the way, God created this earth. And I've seen the miracles that this planet can do in change things around in 10 or 20 years. But the challenge is the policies, right? So if we could just get rid of these policies and these threats to our food system and let producers produce, we could see this happen. Now you have to change some of the mindsets that's really challenging on chemical agriculture.
Yeah.
Because, chemical agriculture is a byproduct. That was Agent Orange that we no longer used after World War II was converted to chemical agriculture.
Sure.
And so it's causing leaky gut syndrome. It's causing unhealthy microgut biomes when you eat food that's treated with that. But the other side of that is, if you were raised in that model, you just don't know what you don't know. So even the producers using that, they just didn't know any better.
Yeah, well, and I've even gone down, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, right? Our generation has some of and it's continuing to build, but like our generation was this first huge jump of type 1, which type 1 is an autoimmune disorder.
Yep.
People getting at all sorts of weird ages, right?
Yep.
Because it's not like a type 2 where it's lifestyle based or things like that. Like, right. I mean, I was diagnosed when I was 10, and it's like we were kind of the first generation that was fed food out of boxes.
Yes.
Right? And so I've always wondered if how much of that played into some of the increase in these autoimmune things of that nature. And
yeah.
But man, if you remove said policies, you would create the apocalypse, bro. Especially with the cities, the inner cities where like there's no access, there's not enough people. Like, it, to your point with the position that she's in, it's a dance because you have to turn down the knob on the current, centralized system we have while we slowly turn up the other. Like, it's going to have to be a nice little handoff for it to not be too bumpy and keep people fed. And
the issue is, I think if you change the policies now, all you're affecting is the bottom line of the big companies, but they're funding so many of these other programs.
Sure.
That would be an effect or be affected. Right.
Yeah.
But, and so, it is and that's the hard part right now. Like, we've been suffering for so long, and I say the producers have been suffering for so long, they want it tomorrow. Yeah. And so there's just there's a lot of angst inside of there. And that's where I think it's important for people to understand epigenetics. Epigenetics is the environment you grew up in, and even the environment your ancestors grew up in, and it gets handed down from generation to generation. And so it's almost like just like the color of your skin or your hair or whatnot from genetics.
Sure.
Your epigenetics is just as powerful, but it's environmental based on what they experience. So if scarcity is what you came from, scarcity is what you see.
Yeah.
Now, if you learn that, then you can put like I've learned as I learn new distinctions and I can put a label to it, then I can get past it.
You can process it. You're figuring, I have an episode where I talk about that very thing, and I reference it as programs.
Yes.
That we have these programs that run our unconscious mind.
Yep.
And it's from how we were raised.
Right.
And then even before that, it's generational. And so there are these, I call them generational curses, especially if we're talking about the ones that don't serve us. And scarcity is a great one.
Yeah.
Whether it was you grew up and all your parents argued about was money, and now you have this thing of like there's never enough.
Yes.
But that could even be before that, because 3 generations ago, whatever, or great grandparents were in the Great Depression, and then that continued to feed on how we view money, how we view everything, and you got to figure out, cool, what programs do I have running me, which ones serve me, and which ones do not, and it's a fascinating study in how it gets worked into like our literal DNA.
Yeah,
and we are certainly a product of our environment and how we were raised, but we're also not a victim to it. And so I think we can have enough of that self-awareness and establish those things, recognize them, figure out what it is, why it's there. And if it doesn't serve me, let's work on replacing that with something else, right?
Yeah. Hoarding is an easy one to show there, right? If your grandparents were in the Great Depression.
Yep.
They've got a garage full of crap.
They didn't get rid of nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yep.
Cool. So let's since we're kind of touching on a little bit, let's talk about money.
Okay.
How much is needed for such a large project, man? Like, I mean, and there's a few questions I'll throw at you, and then you can kind of dissect them. So, how much money is needed for a project like this you're working on?
Yeah.
And then obviously you also need to make a living. You also need to make sure that you can provide for your family, and this needs to be lucrative to you to a certain extent, right? And then you touched on this earlier, but then the sourcing is this way. It's a guarantee to increase the price of your food. But we touched on that already, right? Yes, it's more expensive, but it's saving you money down the line because your quality's better, the nutrients are going to be better. And when you really break it down, cooking food this way in excess, you're going to be getting 2 to 3 meals out of that instead of just one.
Yep.
So I think we covered the last one, but can you talk about the money piece of like, that's got to be a hurdle for you guys. It's like, cool, we've got to have a lot of money to make this happen.
Yeah, our projection is if we can raise $5 million, we can get to a point where we can start scaling on our own. Now we can scale faster if we get more, but what we're not willing to do is sacrifice the mission for more money.
Sure.
So we've had private equity and venture capital come to us that will give us a lot more, but we've built a system that prioritizes the success of the farmer and rancher. And that goes back, just to touch on it real quick, it's supply and demand. The cost is high because we've only got 2% of producers growing. But if all these new generations of producers coming in can start making a living, we increase the supply, and then prices can come down. And they'll still make a living because they're getting the retail dollar. That's our thing. And that goes into what I'm sharing now is our model is designed that the producer gets 100% of the retail dollar. We have been charged with finding ways to be profitable as a company without taking the food dollar, because it's a whole ecosystem. We can do that. We get a little bit from shipping. We aggregate and get consumer and producers better shipping prices, but there's enough margin for us there. We start buying packaging and selling that to our consumers. Well, I have the more producers I can sell to, the more buying power I have, and we can get a margin there. So we're bringing their cost of packaging down while having enough margin for us to make money. So that's where the philanthropic side of what we're doing is. That's also why we can't take private equity, because if we do and we lose control of our board and they say, look at all this money we're making these farmers and ranchers, let's add 10% commission.
Right.
It only starts at 10.
Right.
20 years from now, from the farms now taking 75% commission back to where we are now.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're trying to build this for a generational benefit and show that more people can get back into agriculture so we can bring the number of producers up and create abundance again.
I like that. And then it highlights what we talked about earlier with, having these non-negotiables in your life. It might slow you down. Yes. But these are things that you're not going to let go of. And I appreciate that about this project, and that you're like, we're going to find a way where and for me, like I never get weird about a project or a thing like this where you find a way where it also is very lucrative for you. I'm like, that's what it's about. Yeah. Because everybody wins. So that doesn't bother me, but I love the fact that you're doing it without sacrificing or taking money out of the pockets of those producers, because that's what's driving this anyways, right? And that's what the whole mission is. So will it maybe take you a little bit longer to get there? Perhaps. Yep. But then you'll have that peace of mind, knowing that you didn't sacrifice what the general mission was in the beginning, right? That's right. And then how close are you to that 5 million mark?
Don't know. We're having lots of conversations, and some of them are pretty good. And I think the more work we're able to get done, in Washington shows that we have some unique aspects about who we are that can really shift markets. And so I think we're close, but it's trying to find the philanthropist that's like, look, I've made all my money. You know, somebody can wipe their butt with $5 million that wants to make an impact on this planet before they're gone.
Sure.
And so that's who we're looking for. So we're just trying to get in the right rooms now. And we've had people come our way, but again, they're not the right people. They see it as a lucrative opportunity when that wasn't anything about what drove us to do this.
Now, from the farm as it is right now is functioning in the capacity that you're talking already.
Yeah, we've got
like I can get on there, I can purchase food, I can do all this. But you're talking about this additional funding to take it to the level that you want to take it to. But as of right now, it's working on the systems. Those systems you're speaking about are in place and available right now for the public.
Yeah, we got 100 producers. It's fromthefarm.org. We've got 100 producers on there across the nation. Most of them are shipping. So if there's nobody right in your area, you can get it within a day.
Sure.
So that's functioning. Of course, it's technology, so it needs improvements.
Sure.
We haven't been able to put any money into marketing, so it's all been organic. We've done over 1,000 orders since we've launched, which is a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
We're in 35 states. We have producers in 35 of the 50 states. So marketing to get more producers to find out about us and get them on, marketing to get more consumers to come in there, and then building out this technology using AI, because that's one of the benefits we have is in our day and age, what Shopify put $50 million or more into development won't cost me nearly that much because we've got AI that can accelerate that. So the money we're raising will go into continuing our software development, but then also marketing. Because again, we put all our resources into the software.
Sure.
Our growth has been purely organic. You know, my social media, Brooke's social media, Brooke Ent's my business partner.
Yep.
That's what's driven it so far. But when we raise our next round of capital, about half of that's just going to go into creating some really compelling messaging and education and so forth.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we'll make sure on the YouTube video and everything else too. We'll make sure to put in there too how people can find you guys.
Awesome. Yeah.
Socials and then the website itself. Just so you know, we'll try to do our best to get that out there.
Let me offer just a quick. It's part of the education side of it.
Yeah.
You can save a lot of money if you buy a share, a beef share, or a lamb share, or a pig share. In other words, a bigger portion of that animal. So in the beef world, you can buy a quarter of a cow, half a cow, or a whole cow.
Yep.
Now, it requires a bigger upfront investment, but tax season's coming up. There's no better place to spend your tax returns if you've got them than to fill a deep freeze clear full of beef because we don't know what's going to happen next year.
Sure.
But when you buy it in that aspect, it makes it way easier for the rancher to manage so they don't have to charge as much. If I as the rancher, have to box 10 pounds up at a time, all of those boxes cost money. My time costs money. The shipping costs money.
Yep.
But if you buy that whole beef up front from me, I can sell it to you for way less than by the cut.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
per usual volume, right?
Volume, yep.
It's going to make a difference.
Yep.
Cool. So kind of getting close to wrapping this up here, AJ, but I would be remiss if I didn't tie this into personal development.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've spoken to several times with different guests and myself is the challenges we face, the fear, the doubt, the resistance. There's a great book called The War of Art, and he talks about the resistance that we face in the creative process or pursuing a goal that no matter what it is for you, a business, anything like that, often feels lofty and there's a lot of unknowns. So can you speak to the fear, the resistance, the doubt, even though it felt like you were called to this?
Yeah.
Can you speak to that as in what you faced in taking this project on?
Yeah. You know, we'd probably be further along if I wasn't going through the personal development journey. Like, again, I don't know how to do software, so I waste time until I meet somebody that can talk to me about that. And then I come here and I'm doing this and I call my mentor and I'm like, okay, this needs to be done. I've done the research. I'm now running a slaughterhouse in Cody, Wyoming. He's like, what? You're doing what? Where? I'm like, yeah, I've done enough R&D. And then he's like, oh, now you need a wireframe. And I'm like, well, what the heck is that? One more thing that I know nothing about. And so I wasted another month feeling sorry for myself about something I don't know anything about. And then God taps me on the shoulder and says, keep going. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I jump on Fiverr, and so that's what it looks like. But what I learned, again, mentorship, I had a mentor named, his name's Jeff Wilmore, and he taught me a distinction called the force field of business. And the force field of business is you write whatever excuse on the board that you have of why you're not doing the thing you're supposed to do. And the terminology to that is that's just the force field of business. So when I'm feeling restriction inside that I can't, that I'm not good enough, when I can label that the force field of, I'm like, oh, that's just the force field of business. Okay, what do I got to do? Right. But most importantly, getting on my knees and praying. I mean, the self-development and learning these terms is good, but if I'm not connected to my God, my creator, and having him give me the strength to keep going, I wouldn't keep going, because I'm just this mortal man taking on something that is way outside of my element. I mean, like being in Washington, D.C., it's hard for me to say that I never saw myself there, because I've asked God to put me where I'm supposed to be. So I'm not there in a state of like, I can't believe I'm here. I'm there like, okay, how do I navigate this? Because these conversations are way deeper than I saw myself being in. And so self-development is the only reason I'm able to do what I'm doing. And that's from the mentors who've taught me these important things. And then keeping my mind right, keeping myself in a clear state of mind to be able to receive downloads from God on this is where you need to go. We pray in our company, before our team meetings, and we ask every time for discernment. Give us discernment, because there's so many directions this can go. But that's our culture. That's our company culture. God, give us the discernment to make the decisions necessary to serve our producers and serve the community that we're trying to feed. And I think that's the most important part of self-development is your connection with something outside of yourself.
Yeah, man, I think I couldn't agree more on all of those points. And it's interesting, we had spoken to it earlier, but if you're doing the things in personal development, the things that help you be the best you, I feel like it sets you up to better recognize and seize opportunities when they present. And for you, you're trying to get in front of the right people. So when you do get into these rooms, you got to make sure you're ready for that.
Yes.
And then I think in doing that personal development, it helps us establish a better understanding of ourself, an appropriate amount of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about this, I reference it as the geometry of life, which is this triangulation between loving God, loving our neighbor, and loving ourself, and how loving ourselves is a super important piece of that, because if we're not the best version of ourselves, we can't glorify God and love him.
Yep.
And then we can't also show up for our neighbor and then be present there. And so I had a guest, a friend of mine, fellow gym owner and fellow physical therapy practitioner as well. And, we talked about this topic and idea that I love is that the things we have, the businesses or like this project for you, it's a stewardship. And so we need to make sure that we're treating it as such and giving it the respect that it deserves. And manifestation's a real thing.
Yep.
Working on you, but manifestation doesn't mean anything unless you're putting in the work and the action items.
Yeah.
To make sure that you're exactly who you need to be to achieve that. And then for us as a stewardship, to be a tool in God's hands to help others and to push it forward,
Yeah. And to your order, God, family, freedom, weights.
Yep.
If you don't understand the mechanics of the body, doesn't matter how smart you are. I do ice bath training, right? Well, why do I do that? Because I understand the role it has on the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. If I could put myself in a controlled state of stress and breathe through that, I'm training my body so that when I'm in a different state of stress, I know how to work through that. My body isn't going to get overwhelmed, and I'm not going to be clouded on how to get to where I'm trying to go.
Creates a relativity scale, right?
Yes.
That's what I would say. That's why fitness is so great. If you get really good at going to the gym regularly and pushing yourself to those limits, like anything else you do that day or that week, it's like, man, you should see what I did for leg day. Like this, and so it does. It creates a really cool perception and relativity scale on the other stresses that we would. And so, putting yourself in a positive physical stress like that can help us prepare for any of the emotional stress that life's going to throw at us. And I love that, man. It's a preparedness thing, right?
Yeah, 100%.
There's some days it's about changing the physique and building muscle, and other days it's just about the mind and making sure that, controlling self.
Yeah.
So,
If you're eating junk food and your brain is clouded and you don't know it's the food you're eating that's not allowing you to think clearly,
sure.
all of those things come into play. They're just building blocks. You've got to build that foundation, and then the other things will be able to follow.
So one of my last questions for you, and you've already answered it, but it was like, how has fitness and your personal non-negotiables, helped you in life and on this project? And you've already spoken to that. That's a piece of the puzzle too. And again, to circle back what we talked about earlier, it's like, make sure you're doing the things that help you be the best you. And I say, I talk about all the time, like, take an inventory of your life. Like, what are the things that I'm doing that serve me? Because non-negotiables are sometimes things you're going to do. Sometimes they're things you're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know that something you're doing isn't serving you, then let's work on removing that.
Yes.
And if you know that there's things that do serve you and you're not doing enough of it, like, lean into it, right?
Yeah.
Step on the gas if you know it works,
Yeah.
right? Like, lean into that. So
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said earlier, seasons of life, you might have something now that's serving you, but you might get to a point where you're like, man, I'm not feeling like I'm being highly productive. Analyze everything that you're doing
constantly,
because it may be something that was serving you at some point that no longer is, and you need to let that go and move on.
Well, and it's a test-retest model, right? We use that in physical therapy. It's like, let's establish this baseline, and we have to have something that gives us a test-retest so that we know if what we're doing is working or not. And I think that constant inventory, there's all sorts of ways to do it, journaling, whatever else, but like, taking inventory on your life. It's your opportunity and arguably your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that freedom piece on that flag, right? That's what free agency is so much more than, I get to choose between right and wrong. Like, no, like, you get to choose everything. So like, make sure you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like, work on your personal brand just as much as you do the brand of the business or everything else.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I love that, man. Well, AJ, I appreciate you coming on with me.
Yeah.
Your project, this mission that From the Farm is on, it's inspiring to me. It stresses me out for you, which is awesome. Because man, you were biting off and chewing a lot here, and man, I commend you for it. And,
thank you.
I think it's a good thing. And I have seen the trend throughout everywhere, from online to people that I know, that there's an uptick on people wanting to increase their own resources, which I think will only help this project. So,
right.
Man, I don't have 1 million subscribers or anything like that. I think we're close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, but whoever hears this, like I said, we'll make sure that they can find your stuff, and maybe we can increase that 1,000 orders to a couple thousand.
Be amazing.
See what we can do, man. But
I love it.
I wish you the best of luck, man, on this, and appreciate you coming on. And it's been nice to get to know you over the last few years, and grateful for you in this conversation, man. So wishing you the best.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. Okay. All right, guys. Episode 19. That's a wrap. So hope you enjoyed that. It got me thinking about how resourceful I am in my own life with food and things of that nature. So I think it's something worth considering, our infrastructure and our own life and what surrounds us. So appreciate my guest AJ coming on and sharing his journey with us. So a reminder to you guys that lean into the things that are going to help you be the best version of you. And as always, the message that I'll leave you with is to build the better you.